Quick review. This picture is a simplified picture just looking at the posterior pituitary. So the posterior pituitary, or the neurohypophysis, is actually a collection of axon terminals from neurons that originate up in the hypothalamus. So in the hypothalamus, there are two groups of neurons, the supraoptic nucleus and the paraventricular nucleus, whose axons descend through the infundibulum, forming the hypothalamo-hypophyseal tract. And then those neurons terminate in the posterior pituitary. The posterior pituitary has two secretions. Those two secretions come from these nuclei, oxytocin and antidiuretic hormone ADH. Oxytocin is primarily produced in the paraventricular nucleus, compared to ADH is primarily produced in the supraoptic nucleus. Both of those hormones are very similar. They're small peptides. They're 9 amino acids each, but they have very powerful effects in the body. Let's take a look at ADH. Antidiuretic hormone, if you know what the term diuretic means, to get rid of excess water, right, to stimulate urination. Antidiuretic is the opposite of that. So antidiuretic hormone is released from the posterior pituitary when the hypothalamus senses that the blood is concentrated or that the blood pressure is low. And ADH causes vasoconstriction, or in other words, it causes a narrowing of blood vessels, which is going to increase blood pressure. Antidiuretic hormone also targets the kidneys, and it binds to the kidney tubules, and it overall increases reabsorption of water. In other words, water that would have become part of the urine is taken back and put into the blood. Antidiuretic. So the blood volume goes up. That extra water is going to dilute out the blood, so the osmotic pressure of the blood goes down. And of course, because we're taking water out of the forming urine, urine production decreases. The other hormone produced by produced in the hypothalamus and then released from the posterior pituitary is oxytocin. Oxytocin is a very powerful smooth muscle contractant. And so if there is increased pressure on the cervix, like at the time of childbirth, or mechanical stimulation of the nipple from a nursing infant or from a breast pump, either of those stimuli will be sensed in the brain, and it's going to cause the paraventricular nucleus of the hypothalamus to release oxytocin from the neurohypophysis, from the posterior pituitary, into the bloodstream. And as we said, oxytocin is a very powerful smooth muscle contractant, so it will cause ejection of milk from the breast. It's a different hormone that causes milk production. I'll talk about that in a different video, but oxytocin will cause milk ejection from the breast, or the milk letdown reflex, and it also causes contraction of the uterus that would bring about the delivery of the offspring, or after delivery, that uterine contraction can help to return the uterus to pre-pregnant size.